Your department might owe you overtime, and you might not even know it. This video covers the Fair Labor Standards Act and provides you with information that you need to know to make sure you're being paid correctly. I'm Steve Serbalik, and I'm a panel attorney with ASCOPS in Arizona. The Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, is a federal law that mandates agencies pay overtime to employees, including police officers, in a number of circumstances. Today, I'll cover 3 aspects of the FLSA that specifically apply to police officers: your right to payment for after-hours activities, permissible schedules, and the requirement and availability of comp time instead of overtime. As always, please remember this is a basic summary. There are tons of fact-specific issues that come up in wage and benefit cases, so if you have a specific circumstance that you need advice on, ask a lawyer. The first topic is your right to compensation for substantial after-hours responsibilities. The law requires that if you are expected to complete substantial activities that relate to your employment outside of your shift, you must be compensated for those activities. The classic example of this involves police canine handlers. Handlers are expected to care for their dogs even on their days off. And courts have held that these care expectations must be compensated under the FLSA. Similarly, detectives and investigators are not exempt from FLSA requirements and most of the time need to be compensated if they're performing job-related work, like follow-up phone calls and paperwork at home and outside of their shifts. Now that you know that officers are entitled to extra payment for hours outside of shifts, let's talk about permissible shift schedules. The FLSA specifically allows departments to have some non-traditional work schedules without mandating overtime. Specifically, the law allows agencies to define work periods of between 7 and 28 consecutive days and requires overtime when the number of hours worked exceeds 43 hours for 7, 86 for 14, and 171 for a 28-day period. The actual math and specific factual circumstances to calculate the requirements are complicated. So if you have questions about your specific circumstance, as always, ask for help. Now that you know more about when you are entitled to extra compensation, let's talk about comp time. Under certain circumstances, a state or local government agency may give comp time in lieu of cash overtime. If comp time is awarded, it must be given at a rate of at least 1.5 hours for each overtime hour worked. Comp time is limited to a maximum of 480 hours under the federal law, and employees must be permitted to use their earned comp time on the date requested unless doing so would unduly disrupt the operations of the agency. So here's the recap. We covered your right to compensation if you work outside of your scheduled shift, including the requirement that canine handlers and detectives and investigators be compensated for after-hours responsibilities. We also cover the concept of unusual shifts. Your agency may define work periods of between 7 and 28 consecutive days and create specific expectations for hours worked before overtime is mandatory. Next, we talked about the requirements for comp time. It's awarded at a rate of at least time and a half for hours worked. It's subject to a 480-hour cap and must be allowed to be used by the officer for time off unless the time off would unduly disrupt the operations of the agency. Finally, please ask for help if you have specific questions related to wages and hours. This topic is incredibly complex, but you deserve to be paid fairly for the time that you work. So if you have any issues, ask for help. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button below and subscribe for more law enforcement lessons. I'm Steve Serbalik. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.